We have heard a lot about the prosecution's case against Diddy. And we've heard news conferences, we've seen raids, we have heard what the federal government has. And one of the things
alleging
and one of the things they talked about right out off the jump was they seized tapes. And a lot of people thought, oh my God, there are celebrities on these tapes involving freak-offs.
Right. Well, we've heard allegations about other celebrities connected to Diddy. But the people on Diddy's side say we're getting things all mixed up here. And
she blames the media.
Right. She being Tenny Garagos, who is one of the attorneys representing Diddy in the federal indictment, in the criminal case against him. And she sat down with Harvey and Mark Garagos for their Two Angry Men podcast. Yes, Tenny is Mark's daughter. But this is the questioning. You got into her talking about what Diddy's defense was going to be.
I got to tell you, before we asked a single question, this is what she wanted to say.
I think that the public and the media have gotten nearly every fact wrong about what the prosecution's case is here. So I just want to take one issue with that. You know, there's no minors, there's no celebrity sex tapes. You know, the civil lawsuits here are not driving the allegations that we're defending against, but it is driving the vitriol against him in the media.
This kind of created a life of its own, that they had seized videos of the freak-offs, and it kind of spun into who's on those tapes. And Hollywood became unusually silent.
I think there's one huge reason, and that's Tony Busby. Right after the indictment, he came out with a press conference with a 1-800 number behind him, threatening lawsuits against our client without having filed any. And we saw exactly how it played out, and we saw exactly why Hollywood went quiet.
And what she's referring to, part of why Hollywood went quiet is we now know that Tony Busby sent demand letters to several celebrities, most notably Jay-Z, who stood up to that and is actually now suing Tony Busby for extortion.
Right. Because the person who was suing him dropped it because of all the inconsistencies in her case. Now, Tenny also said that they are going to be looking to file other defamation lawsuits. And she made that really clear, that it wasn't just going to be a one-off with Jay-Z.
Well, hold on, because Jay-Z is suing him, but she's not representing Jay-Z. She's saying that Diddy is going to file defamation lawsuits against some of the people who are making allegations out of court.
Now, Tony Busby, by the way, you just mentioned something. When we did one of our earlier Downfall of Diddy documentaries, we had Tony Busby on. And I asked him specifically, is the game here to go to high-profile people like a celebrity and say either settle or we're going to file a lawsuit which effectively will ruin your life and your career? And he kind of said, that's the drill in civil litigation. So he was open about that. She does not abide by that.
Yeah, look, I think this is what we're seeing here played out in a very public way, is what happens not publicly every day in this country. Our system is set up for this, right? You have plaintiffs' lawyers who try to exploit every possible vulnerability of the defense, including by threatening to file lawsuits that may or may not be fully fleshed out. And if you force them to prove their case, they're going to say, you're going to be really embarrassed if this comes out, therefore you might as well just settle up. And then on the other hand, you have a defense lawyer who is putting her client's best foot forward here to try and not only, in this case, win the court of public opinion, but also to lay the seeds with the plaintiff's counsel that this is not going to be quite as easy as you think, and you better be prepared for war.
So I think in having this discussion, we've kind of done exactly what Tenny and I think Mark Agnifilo would say, is that we're melding the civil lawsuits, and that's what Tony Busby's about. Tony Busby's the civil lawsuits. The conversation that you get into more on the podcast with her is also about the actual criminal matter. This is the federal indictment against Diddy, And that's what she and Mark Agnifilo are defending Diddy against the U.S. attorney
That's
for.
right. And there are so many allegations civilly with minors, with drugging, and a lot of other things.
People think that the U.S. attorney has that.
And they think that it's not. They're separate. There are 3 victims, alleged victims, in the federal case.
Now,
Cassie and 2 others.
Right. Now, I don't think we should downplay to make it seem like, oh, well, if that's all that he's facing. I mean,
In the criminal case.
Right, but I'm saying take away all the civil lawsuits. He's still facing a lot here against the government.
Oh, he is.
As far as these criminal charges.
He is.
And yes, you're right. It is only at this point 3 victims that the government has named, but it's not. Those 3 victims are enough to send him away to prison for a long time.
Right.
If the government wins.
If the government wins. What we haven't heard is what is the defense that they will mount against the 3 victims? Are they going to argue it was consensual? Are they going to argue that it's racial? Are they going to argue?
Well, we know they're going to argue it's racial. I said that.
You're going to get in the consent issue too.
Yeah.
Are they going to argue that to call this racketeering when it's basically looking at what goes on in somebody's bedroom pushes the law so far that it's like a rubber band that breaks? Now, I'm not saying that's going to work or not work, but they're going to put up a fight. They are going to put up a fight.
My name's Shana and I'm from the UK. I believe that there is a lot of misinformation surrounding the Diddy case, but I also believe that there is no smoke without fire. What I will say is this is the same guy that denied all allegations made against him by Cassie, and until that hotel footage got leaked, and then that's when he wanted to come with the apology. So I'm quite happy to see. I quite want to see how this plays out, in my opinion.
You're right. You're so right about
that's what
the
people
Cassie
keep going
video.
back to, that he denied. I did nothing like that, and
that's going to be maybe his biggest problem.
Yeah.
But what she just said is really interesting. There's a lot of smoke there. Maybe not fire, but smoke. Thing is, to get a conviction, smoke isn't enough.
You
need the fire.
Yeah.
And that's going to be.
And you got to have the fire on video.
Right.
So to speak.
Okay. We are going to move on.